welcome to my channel. Tonight I wanted to give you just a quick little walkabout, a little garden tour, just to show you what everything looks like at the end of the season, what looks good and what isn't faring quite as well. This is also a great tool for me just to document visually so I know what I want to repeat next year and what I want to steer clear of. And to be honest, I do want to be able to look back on my summer garden, especially when we hit the gray of January in Eastern Washington. So let's get to the tour. All right, so we're starting out here. This is what we call our rock wall. This is what you see right when you pull into our driveway. It's the first thing. And I have to say, we've lived here for about 3 years. I have to give credit to the former owner because they're the ones who really built our house and then landscaped everything. So they're the ones responsible for all of the hardscaping, the rock walls, and then all of the structure with the mature trees and shrubs all around our property. They did an excellent job, and I get to just come in and have fun and do kind of the icing on the cake with all the flowers. So the first thing I think most people would notice is the bright pop of pink. This is the provenwinners Supertunia Vista Bubblegum. This is a really popular flower, and it's actually my first time growing the bubblegum. I think I was reluctant because so many people have talked about it that I almost hesitated in trying it out. I felt like I was kind of just falling into that, but I have to say I love it. It is super prolific. It blooms its head off and you don't have to deadhead. It's really easy as long as you keep up on fertilizing. The foliage stays nice and green and the blooms are just beautiful. They just pop and really highlight this whole rock wall area. I wish I had planted the bubblegums back in May when I usually plant my annual flowers. My husband and I actually only planted these around the 4th of July. We came out here one night and just popped them in and they're already this big and look wonderful. But if I had planted them in May, they'd probably be double, maybe triple the size. I love the bubblegum. I'm gonna keep growing it year after year. One of the plants that is just loving its life out here is this lamb's ear. This is only its 2nd year. I popped this in last spring maybe, and it just loves it. It has absolutely thrived. The foliage is so pretty. I love this plant. It's this nice soft texture and I just love the silvery color. All right, so we also have some daylilies. I'm a little torn on these. We'll see. I might pull them out and replace them with something else next year. We have all sorts of ground covers. I can't quite remember all the names. We have salvia. We have our Shasta daisies. They're not blooming right now. Now, next year, I'm planning on doing something similar with the supertunias, but I think I'm going to cover this whole rock wall with supertunias. So mixing in some perennials with some annuals, it's just so much fun and a great way to bring a pop of color in a short time. So in terms of shrubs, we have a creeping juniper that just sort of creeps along the entire length of this rock wall. We have a barberry right here, very thorny, but pretty. I like the different color, the red. And then up top, we have a burning bush and then a lilac. The lilac is in good need of a nice trimming. I'll do that next spring once it finishes blooming. So we're on the south side of my house. This used to have just 3 little ornamental grasses here when we moved in. We took those out, transplanted them, and I built actually my brother built this one, but I built 3 raised beds and made my own raised garden bed area. So you can see my cattle panel trellis is really growing in. We have our cucumbers here. They're still growing, looking beautiful. It's really filling in exactly how I pictured it. They just today grew together. So you can see cucumber. On this side, I have a few purple hyacinth bean vine. I learned about these from Alan Smith. He said that these were Thomas Jefferson's favorite plant. And I actually have a few in bloom around back that I'll show you later. They have these really pretty purple blooms that just look beautiful. So in this bed, I already pulled my potatoes from here. Our carrots, these are just kind of for fun. Haven't checked them in a long time. I actually have one growing down in the crack down in there. Kind of funny. But it's just nice to see something growing. And then in this bed, I actually popped in some Jack B. Little pumpkins. I was hoping one of them would climb up the trellis. He might be getting too much shade now that everything's grown in, but I'm hoping that these have enough time to fill in and at least produce a few pumpkins. We have our tomatoes here, sun sugars, and then these were supposed to be San Marzanos, and I think they kind of got crossed, so now I have a bunch of little cherry tomatoes. Kind of funny. All right, and then this third bed is my salsa bed. I got all of the onions already pulled. Nothing's in there now. I have a few herbs here. I have all sorts of peppers in this row, and then I have some Roma tomatoes around back. Some of them I need to come through and start pulling. We've got lots of ripe tomatoes. Yum. All right, and then our last bed, it's a little more narrow. We have our strawberries. They're kind of little guys, but they're good. And then I have another Jack B. Little or two. This one's not quite doing so well, but it's just fun. Fun to come out here and pick things and just pop them in your mouth. All right, so now we're in our front yard and we have a garden bed that goes all the way around and has all sorts of mature shrubs in it. We have mainly junipers and then Norway spruce and burning bushes. We do have a few Alberta spruces back here, and then we also have the nice ornamental grasses. This is, I believe it's called feather reed grass. It's just really pretty, especially when there's a gentle little breeze, and these are easy to divide and kind of spread out. There's a couple of them that are getting pretty big that we're gonna be needing to divide next spring. So this is one of our burning bushes. It's right on the corner, right as you drive in, and I'm not sure if this is pest damage or winter burn. Those are kind of the two theories we have, but basically half of this bush died last spring. I did my best to kind of trim away the dead, and then more dead happened, so it's probably a goner. We're kind of just waiting to see and kind of researching on what we should replace it with in the meantime. So sometimes that happens, and that's okay. I wish it could have been a bush that wasn't quite so visual. It's right when you pull in, it's the first thing you see. And then this area, I don't love landscape rock. I understand why people choose landscape rock if you want to just be done and have easy maintenance. But if you're someone like me who loves to garden, this isn't exactly the easiest thing to work in. I would love to make this area more of a focal point, kind of like our rock wall on the opposite side over there, with more flowers, shrubs, things like that. All right, let's take a look real quick at our front porch. So first thing you might notice is I had to do away with the black and white rug. It was getting way too stained and I just needed to clean it up a little bit, but our flowers are really doing beautifully. We have two different containers here kind of flanking the door. In the middle, I have these boxwood cones, and you can see how woolly and kind of bushy they've gotten. I might tidy them up once I do my fall front porch, but I just think they're really enjoying their time here. This one started to scorch a little bit, so I was a little worried, but it's really recovered really well. All right, so as for flowers, I have the provenwinners supertunia rose. It's not as vigorous as the Vista variety. Here, this is the supertunia Vista fuchsia. It's done so well, and as you can see, the foliage is so nice and deep green, very lush. A lot of times with annual flowers, as it gets hotter, sometimes their foliage can kind of almost bleach out to kind of a gray, kind of dry looking color. These did not do this. These just looked really pretty. They've actually been cut back twice already. They got all the way down. You couldn't see the containers at all. Just super healthy, vigorous growers. And then over on the side here, you can see I have a coleus. Kind of fun. It kind of competes with the boxwood a little bit, just a little unexpected. I like it. It brings out the color of the fuchsia here. My mistake for these containers, maybe not a mistake, but something I won't be repeating next year, is the Bidens. Look at my one lone Biden bloom right there, the little pop of yellow. I'll probably use a supertunia yellow color next year. These, I just don't have great luck with them. I don't know why. Some people do, but I do not. And then here we have our lemon coral sedum. This is a really fun plant. It's fun to come in and touch. It's kind of rubbery, does really well, very little water needed, and it looks really pretty against the fuchsia. Same thing for this pot here, it's just a repeat. And then here, my sister-in-law actually got me this hanging basket, giant hanging basket, and I had already got these flowers, and then I got these the same day, and when I checked, it was hilarious because these are a combination of the provenwinners Vista Bubblegum, this kind of pinky color here, the Vista Fuchsia, which I already have here, same flower, and then the Vista Silverberry, kind of this lighter whitey pink color here. And it's just done so well. It blends in really nicely and just makes a really welcoming display when we pull up to our house. The north side of our house, we have Norway spruce, Alberta spruce, another barberry, a creeping juniper. This is kind of just a pretty fun little area. I really like this spot. We have a nice Green Mountain boxwood and then another Norway spruce. I actually really enjoy hand trimming all of the shrubs on our property myself. I don't have a hedge trimmer. I just use my loppers and I make it exercise. I like making nice precise cuts. You can see that this is kind of grown out a little bit, as have all of the shrubs. I could go back and give them a little bit of a tidying up this fall. I might do that, I might not. So this little corner is what I'm calling my husband's area. He loves ornamental grasses. Once we get a clump that's too big and it needs to be divided, this is where we transplant them to. He just kind of started doing this one day and I thought it was kind of funny. Actually, this burning bush, it's a little bit struggling still, but I transplanted this. I dug it up myself, transplanted it here. This used to be where our chicken coop is now. So that was a big effort. It's still alive, doing okay. And it's sitting right here in the middle of our ornamental grass area. So these guys hopefully will root in. Normally, when you transplant grasses, it's when they're cut down in the spring, so they're shorter, but we've done this before. In fact, this guy here, we did the exact same thing last year and it's doing really well. I also popped in a few little Thumbelina zinnia seeds here and then another pocket on the other side. And then my husband went to Lowe's and recently got some of these hot pokers. They're not blooming right now, I just deadheaded them, but they have these really cool blooms that are like white and then orange. So hot poker is a very fitting name for them. And I think once everything kind of grows in and gets established, it'll look really good. I actually saw in a city kind of landscaping garden where they had these taller grasses and then they underplanted with some low kind of sphere shaped grasses and it was really pretty. So I think that's what we're gonna do here is just come in and fill this entire area with all sorts of grasses. And then of course, I would wanna mulch, but as you can see here, our little birds love to come here and dust bathe. They are so happy, they have the best life. They go up to our neighbor's bird bath and then they come down here and just dust bathe their little hearts out. It's so cute. Okay, so this is the back corner of our property. This is what I call our forest area. This is where, like during Christmas, I love to come out here, cut branches, and just forage for all sorts of greens and little spruce cones. So recently, we put in this arbor to kind of mark this natural entrance into our forest area. And before this year, this whole back area was just a hillside. not landscaped, no plants, nothing, just dirt, spruce cones, and needles. So we went in and kind of started making our own little shade garden with little paths that would meander through. So on the side of this arbor, we did plant 2 climbing roses. This one is a butter yellow variety. I think it's called Golden Showers. It's really pretty. It grows to be like 12 to 14 feet. So it'll go up over this arbor. And then this one, this is a white climbing rose. I think it's called a Cloud 10. And this one will grow to be about 7 or 8 feet tall and meet right about here. So it'll be kind of this nice asymmetrical mixture of blooms eventually. So let's go ahead and take a look at the shade garden. The thing that inspired us to access this area was this very makeshift chicken run extension that we made. My daughter and I made it ourselves using items that we had kind of laying around, and it's been so functional. Our girls are just loving it. We have 8 hens in here and they just have the best life. Entrance. So we just basically came in with all sorts of shade loving plants, different kinds of hostas, some begonias, some heuchera, and just popped things in. This is their first year. We mounded up, created some berms, and then we just lined the pathways with this pea gravel and found all sorts of bigger rocks from all around our property. Now someday we might come in with some, nicer, maybe like stacked rock of some kind, but for now this has just been a really easy way to really define some garden beds and make a nice shade garden. So we have all sorts of coleus. I really like this one. I got this one much bigger. You can see where I got some smaller ones and they've just kind of stayed that size. That's fine, they're very cute. But again, hostas, and we have all sorts of hostas lining this side. I like having all sorts of lush little pockets with just foliage kind of creeping out over our path. And I love the sound of gravel underfoot. It's just very peaceful, very serene. We have a path here so we can greet our neighbors, say hello, and then we have kind of this focal point shade garden here. This was our latest project. We're probably done for this year working on this, but eventually the entire area will be all shade garden. One of my favorite, probably my favorite actually, is this Japanese forest grass, Hakata Cloa. I love the sound, the texture, it's just wispy. I love how it cascades over these interesting rocks here, and it's just gonna get bigger and more lush as the years pass. So eventually over time, and this is just one of those projects that's fun to chip away at, but eventually we'll put in some steps here. Our path will continue up. You can actually still see where the deer have walked through. They've left our plants alone, which I'm thankful for. But our path will continue here, and then we'll create kind of a staircase leading down this way. And again, this whole area used to be nothing but dirt and just a hillside. No mulch, no steps, nothing. So this leads us back around to where we have our chicken coop and our chicken coop garden. And again, this used to be nothing but dirt and one burning bush that we transplanted over to our ornamental corner over there. So here we just put in, I have some more Thumbelina zinnias that I popped on both sides. We have a dwarf Alberta spruce. We have a few little, these are I think winter gem boxwoods. And then we have some purple nepeta right here. This is really pretty in the spring when it's freshly blooming. And then we popped in, of course, a little log, a nice big rock, just for a little bit of interest. Hi girls, we're just visiting. It just makes it pretty to come out here and kind of see the girls. All right, so this brings me to my trouble area. This hillside, which was supposed to be my big project this year, has proven to be a little bit difficult. And I think it's because of the soil. You can kind of see back there, That's what our native soil looks like. And I'm not sure if this hillside was treated with something like a sterilant, because plants really struggle. Everything, I mean, we have this lovely giant blue spruce, we have our burning bushes. You can see those arborvitaes. Those have struggled since we bought our house. And I'm not sure if it's because of the hillside or the quality of the soil, or maybe that the soil was treated. We tend to get weeds here, and a big indication for me is that hillside up above our property has no weeds on it. There's no weeds. And typically here in Eastern Washington, if you don't control weeds, they will control you. They will take over. And the fact that there are no weeds on this hillside is very telling for me. So I have to figure out how to improve the quality of this soil before I really start planting. So I did pop in a few more of the lamb's ear, and you can see, especially compared to the lamb's ear that's out on the rock wall, these are just stunted a little bit. They should be much bigger than this. These are the hardy geranium I planted. These were the first thing I planted this season. They're doing okay, but you can just tell they're really not thriving. A few of these I actually dug up, made the hole way bigger, put brand new soil in, and they seem to improve a little bit, but it's just been quite a bit of a struggle. You can see this guy here, it has nice blooms, but it's just not quite doing what it could be doing at this point. And again, this hillside, I want it to be very cool tones, very purples, chartreuses, whites. I just want to make it a nice, serene, kind of lush hillside. So I'll continue working on that, but until I figure out how to get the soil better, I'm not going to waste money or risk buying a bunch of plants and then watching them just kind of suffer or be stunted. All right, over here we have another burning bush. Oh, this is funny. We have our arborvitae hedge. Again, former owners put these in. I just think it's funny how all of these are little. Maybe they've replaced former arborvitae that were put in that struggled. But I think it's hilarious that this one arborvitae is just loving its life. It's doing so well. How cool would it be if all of them looked like that one? That'd be really neat. But we have another really nice Green Mountain boxwood here. I love this. I actually love the smell of boxwoods. It's a very nostalgic smell. We have this really pretty maple tree. I love the dark purpley colors of the leaves. It does make quite a mess in the fall, which is fine, but it's a really beautiful tree. I love having all sorts of different colors, the greens, the blues, the purples or reds, and then kind of the bright chartreusey yellow. Over here we have our thriving arborvitae. These are actually getting so big that I'm worried that I need to trim them a little bit. They're starting to kind of splay out a little bit, but holy moly, they're doing much better than those poor little guys over on the hillside. All right, so let's take a look at some of the pots on my back deck and see how they're doing. So first up, we have this pot right here as you come up to the deck, and I have to say I love the composition of this pot. It is so nice and tidy and just kind of stays compact. The sweet potato vine doesn't get too wild for whatever reason. It just kind of trails down this one side. The only thing I regret with this pot is putting the little yellow mini supertunias right next to the sweet potato vine. We have quite a lot of yellow on yellow. I wish I would have switched for what I have on this side, which is the provenwinners mini Vista ultramarine, and swapped these two. So I had kind of a nice contrast here. But in the middle, we have the purple fountain grass. Holy moly, it takes a little bit to get going, but once it does, it is a showstopper. All right, and in this pot, this was kind of my experiment, but I popped in a few purple hyacinth bean seeds. I got one packet and just kind of spread them out in my garden, in my pots, and just to kind of see what they would do. This is how they bloom, this really pretty purpley bloom. At first I wasn't sure about the vine because, as you can see, it looks a little messy. It loves to climb. As long as you give it something vertical, it just goes to town. But it was looking a little messy, and then it started blooming, and I just love the blooms. So up here, I talked about this pot in one of my videos. This door really reflects a lot of light, and I think that caused some of these flowers to suffer. So that's a lesson learned for next year. I either will move this pot or really put something in that can kind of withstand that. I'll have to do a little bit of research. The spikes, never again. We're gonna go purple fountain grass all the way for our thriller centerpieces. These just kind of flopped over. They're looking a little disappointing, especially compared to the fountain grass. But as you can see, our sweet potato vine, this is super vigorous. It almost overtakes the others. So I think a great pair for this would be the Supertunia Vista Bubblegum. I think it could hold its own, especially with this. I would love the chartreuse with the bright hot pink. I think it'd be so pretty. So this pot in the corner, kind of the same story, really vigorous sweet potato vine. We have the Proven Winners Mini Vista Ultramarine again. And then we also have the Proven Winners Superbina Lilac Blue. This was the flower I was most excited about. It's looking really pretty in this container. I've struggled with it a little bit in some of my other containers, which I'll show you. But looking really good. I regret the spikes in the middle. They're just kind of flopping over. But other than that, looking really nice. All right, so this is my kitchen cocktail garden, and I have to say it's been so much fun. It's starting to look a little weathered, a little depleted. The leaves are starting to yellow. Everything's kind of lived its life, but it's so fun to come out here and just pop little tomatoes right in your mouth. We have a big old jalapeno here. We have our marigold still looking good, some of our herbs. Our basil is struggling. I realize that my daughter likes to come out here and just pop the leaves off. So I'm not sure if that's why they're withering into sticks or not. But this kitchen garden, if I get a phone call, for some reason I pop out here and just start picking at things. I start deadheading. I picked all my lavender blooms off. I think most of them were spent, but I just kind of start fidgeting with it. We have our mint down here and our rosemary looking really good. I'm excited that these will come back next year. The tomatoes were kind of an experiment, as I shared. They definitely produce little cherry tomatoes. I'm not sure if they're as aesthetically pleasing as I'd hoped they'd be, but it was fun to try them. Definitely fun to come out and just be able to snack. All right, so this pot in the corner, this is my husband's favorite pot. You can see that the container is smaller. It's more narrow than my other containers, so that was kind of another lesson learned. I think these plants sort of outgrew the container. So we have our purple fountain grass as our thriller or our centerpiece, and then we have our Proven Winners Supertunia. I can't remember the exact variety, but there are white Supertunias, very vigorous, very prolific, really pretty. We have some Dusty Miller. Then we have more of the Proven Winner Superbina Lilac Blue. These were beautiful all season. And then what I think happened was once this guy started growing and this guy started growing, I think they started hogging all the nutrients, all the water, and just it became too much. And this guy was basically the first to kind of opt out and say, I'm done. So pretty. I'll make sure and put some pictures on the screen so you can see what it looked like. But this pot is just lovely. Next year, I'll make sure it's a bigger container. Notice how I don't say I'm going to use less plants. I say I'm going to get a bigger container. But you can really see the purple hyacinth bean. It just naturally wound right around this light pole all the way up to the top, and now it's going across the wire. So really, really beautiful blooms. I like it in this capacity. I'm not sure if I like it draping. I tried to have it kind of cascade and billow over a rail. I don't think it works in that way. I think it works well over a trellis or climbing up vertically like this. You can actually come in here. It's getting some little pods on it. These aren't real. I mean, you can eat these, but they can be toxic if not prepared correctly. So if you have animals, something to be aware of. All right, so I have 2 pots on our balcony, and they're kind of funny. They are definitely not going to be repeats for next year, but I wanted to show them anyway. I read a book about Nantucket, and they talked about containers with pink and red geraniums underplanted with alyssum. And then, of course, I added my own thing. I popped some more of the purple hyacinth bean seeds down in there to kind of create this cascading billowy effect off of our balcony, and it didn't really work out that way. It looks okay. It hasn't really bloomed yet here, so it might look prettier, but it's just kind of funny. It's created kind of this tangled mess, and my flowers just, they're doing okay. I find that when I don't love a container, I'll start to neglect it a little bit, and then it just starts looking worse and worse. So one of the things I should have done was, as soon as I realized I didn't love these, I should have just replanted it. I'm thinking next year, supertunia bubblegum with sweet potato vine with purple fountain grass, and just really making a pretty display out here. So I'm actually thinking in the future I'm going to hang some hay racks in the front of this railing and put the supertunia Vista Bubblegum and create this really bright, welcoming focal point right as you pull up, pink just billowing off the railing. We do have some blooms on this side, and they are pretty. It's just not quite what I thought it would be, but it is fun to experiment. Well, I hope you enjoyed taking a peek into my garden, my yard, and just seeing how everything has done this year. Definitely gives me some ideas for next year and plans moving forward. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.